Like, how do you feel generally speaking about January 6th?
It's funny.
It's funny. Okay.
It was an act of...
I feel like whenever I call it treason, they're like, technically it's not treason. Treason has to do with being in war. But it was the least patriotic thing a human can do. He tried to keep himself in power illegally, immorally. Everything bad about a president can't happen that day. He watched people violently break into the Capitol building and stood down. And now he lies about it and says, oh, it's really Pelosi's fault or whatever that bullshit is.
Wait, that's true, though.
No, it's not. See, that's one of the problems with... No, that is not true, actually. He says it all the time, but it didn't happen. Go Google it. Go fact check it.
Listen,
right.
DC,
he didn't
DC,
ask her.
DC is a federal district. DC is a federal district. Who's the head of the federal government? The commander-in-chief.
Did she say no or not?
Just Google
the conversation never happened.
National Guard. Just Google who was in charge of the National Guard.
So the conversation didn't happen.
Well,
that whole thing is false. And that's so hold on. This is one of my frustrations with Trump. He tells, I'll make it up, a lie a minute, right? And then a lot of his listeners say, aha, yeah, but I know which ones are lies and which ones aren't. And here we have Dick actually believing Nancy Pelosi turned down the National Guard. People don't
not National
know.
Guard. She turned down something. I don't know what. I don't know who it was.
People don't know which ones are truth and which one are lies. It's sometimes hard to tell. And he'll stick with a lie again and again and again. So when you hear it enough, you're like, maybe it is true. Maybe there's something truthy about it. If I tell you I caught a 2.5-foot fish, you might think that fish was at least 2 foot. If Trump tells you he caught a 2.5-foot fish, he never went fishing.
I've never heard an innocent. I want to ask you guys this question. I've never heard an innocent explanation for this. So we have a firm timeline that nobody, not even Trump, disputes of what happened that day. We know that Trump gave his speech at the Ellipse and he went back to the White House at 1:20 and he was in the White House dining room at 1:25. We know this. Dozens, hundreds of witnesses attested to this. We know that he sat in the White House dining room and watched on live television cops brutalized and mutilated. Literally mutilated. There were dozens of cops were mutilated that day.
Wait, when?
How are they mutilated?
On January 6th.
How are they mutilated? Did it take years?
No.
I'm going to continue what I'm saying. So at 4:17, nearly 3 hours later, is when he finally asked them to go home.
Cops were mutilated.
They were literally mutilated. People stole their batons from them and beat them with their own batons. You had people crushed in a doorway because his Trump supporters were violently.
Didn't see that footage?
How did you not see this footage?
It's so everywhere.
I understand information silos. You can laugh all you want. You can laugh all you want. You can laugh all you want. But we know
it's
for
the word, and I'm just
it's the word mutilated is ridiculous.
It's because
like,
when we ask, you start freaking out. Like this will undermine your little speech. Like
if you back off mutilated and make it attack.
There were lacerations. There were broken bones. A guy named Brian Sicknick had a stroke. He died the next day. The coroner's report, the chief medical examiner.
Did Trump cause the stroke with like a stroke gun?
The coroner's report, the chief medical examiner said all the events of what happened that day contributed to his condition. So we know that Donald Trump watched it live and waited 3 hours to ask them to leave. How do you explain that?
Well, first of all, cops
got a stroke because he got too excited, and that's our fault?
Do you know more than a chief medical examiner?
I mean, if he's saying a cop shouldn't have had a stroke for being a cop, I guess. A cop
I'm a doctor.
To work
the
and
stroke
it's
was
like
caused by
he gets too stressed out and has a stroke, and what's his job then?
You know, the whole thing about the January 6th stuff for me, I always hear about like hours of tape that they won't give up, and I hear about that question they asked how many FBI agents were in the crowd, and they're like, we don't discuss personnel usage and placement. And it's like, whoa, wait a minute. Well, how many? I don't think of it as cope. I just want to know why there's any stink around this. And then I see video, and I don't think that's cope, of them being like ushered in some cases. I also see video of people breaking windows. And on top of all that, the other thing I don't care for, and Woody will say fuck around and find out. And touche, I guess she did fuck around and she did find out. But that crazy woman who tried to climb through the barricade.
Ashley Babbitt.
If you watch the video, there's like 2 or 3 SWAT guys behind her, and she's trying to climb through this like reinforced glass like window that's within the center of a doorway, and it's like they kill her.
You're not addressing my question at all.
Because you're
How
so
do you
agitated
explain-
about this narrative that you're trying
How
to
do
get
you
across.
explain?
It's nuts.
Well, just explain it to me. How do you explain Donald Trump watching cops get brutalized for 3 hours and before finally asking them to go home?
The cops?
Trump asked
Oh
them
my gosh.
3
Do you really
hours.
think he stop it, Dick?
Trump said go peacefully, no violence. And then he got banned from Twitter.
And then
So
he
couldn't
watched
say anything.
the violence unfold live on television for 3 hours. His family begged him to ask those protesters to leave. His staff begged him to ask those protesters to leave. And it took 3 hours. So how do you
Like with a
explain this?
bullhorn? What do you mean? He said go peacefully to whatever we're doing next. Don't do any violence.
You're
what,
not
what more do you like? What more do you want to pin
the
on him?
substance
Mutilated
of
police?
my question at all. You're not.
Do you
What
think
you're
it's-
asking is insane. What you're
Can you
asking is
tell
why
me-
did Trump wait 3 hours to stop violence? I don't know, man.
Why?
Does he have a magical anti-violence wand that he can wave?
Number one, he could have put out a message as soon as violence broke out, asking his supporters to leave.
They were fighting. They weren't tweeting.
Number two, he could have.
They had cops to mutilate.
he
They're
could
not
have
on their
called in-
phones.
He could have called in the National Guard immediately. He had complete authority to call in the National Guard immediately. That call had to come from Pence. He never even made that call. So,
Hutch,
how
the
do you
reason-
explain that?
The reason that Trump didn't do anything for 3 hours is he was hoping the insurrection would work.
Well,
How would it
yeah.
work?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, yeah.
How would it work?
He was trying to pressure Pence to reject those electors and send it back to
Yes.
the states so he could further litigate his claims that
He
had
wanted-
already been adjudicated and settled.
So
That's
using
what
the
happened
legal
that day.
system
He
was
needed
his
Pence to
plan?
see the writing was on the wall, and I'm surprised Pence stood by there because like there was probably how like telephone games work. I'm sure there was a moment where his Secret Service was told like they've taken the Capitol, and it's
he
like
didn't
wait
give a
what?
fuck. And
He was
didn't give a
happy.
fuck.
It's
The
what he
castle
wanted. He
has
told him to go
fallen.
down there
The
and
castle
fight.
has fallen.
He didn't give a fuck.
Wait,
didn't give a
Hutch,
fuck.
you're not right. He did care. He was happy. This was what he hoped for. He said march down to the Capitol and fight.
You
Right?
guys are
He-
in a cult together.
He said
Do you think
he said
Trump
to
wanted them
go.
to
Yeah, he said
storm
to
the
go
Capitol?
peacefully.
You don't
He also
answer
said to fight.
questions. You dodge questions. You
It's the
realize
Trump
that, right?
two-step.
Hutch, you're asking loaded questions. Like you say
loaded
what happened
question.
and then say,
I'm
well, how do you
asking you for an
explain what
innocent
I
explanation.
hallucinated
I'm
happened?
asking
What
you
you're
for
saying
an
is totally
innocent-
insane about cops getting fucking mutilated, dude. Like 3 cops out of natural
Bro.
fucking causes. You can grab your
Bro.
head like you're Jesse Pinkman
Give
over
me
and
the
over. It
innocent
doesn't make it right.
explanation. Give me the innocent explanation. Try.
Trump said go down. Trump said go down, and we're gonna have a big rally about freedom, and we're gonna.
And then he watched cops.
Hey,
get
you fucking
brutalized
interrupting
for 3
jackass! I'm trying to
hours.
fucking explain it
You're
to you.
not answering the question. You are not
Trump
answering the
said
question.
the beneficial-
You're not even trying to answer the question. You
The
understand that,
generous
right?
explanation is that he said, hey, everybody, go down peacefully and assemble. And we're going to have another big rally. All we do is rallies. And things got out of hand because you got a bunch of agitators in the crowd. Some guys who are nuts, Antifa guys, and the FBI. And they're all trying to agitate everybody.
All right,
The FBI tried to kidnap Whitner, you smug fucks. What the fuck are you talking about?
Sure.
They don't do this shit.
Sure. I'm going to ask the question again. He watched it for 3 hours. Why did he wait 3 hours to ask them to leave?
Ask who to leave? Everybody?
Hey,
Hey, everybody!
motherfucker.
Hey, everybody, leave!
You-
Hey, everybody, leave!
It's not that
What do you
you're
want him to
ideologically
do?
entrenched. You're just dumb. You're not answering this question, and I think it's
What?
obvious why.
What do you want him to do? What exactly did you want him to do?
Tell them to leave.
Where?
As soon.
Where?
What do you mean where? What kind of
Twitter.
Tell them!
Is this?
Who the fuck is them, Hutch, you jackass? Where? What do you
His
get a fucking
supporters.
tin can
His-
phone? How?
dumb
Where? Say it
motherfucker.
where. Say where. Where? Tell them where.
He posted at 4:17. He asked them to leave, and they left. Do you realize that?
On Twitter?
Yes.
Yes.
So you think Trump saying on Twitter, hey, everybody leave, and they all just go, well, we're out of here. See ya.
It literally
We're going.
happened. It literally happened. I would.
I guess if it happened at the same
anybody who's
time, then it
listening to
one
this.
must have caused the other. How do you get this far without no? I guess that's your whole platform, right?
Okay.
Correlation is causation.
Okay.
It happened at the same time, so it must have caused it. They didn't
Okay.
just get tired and go home. Trump,
Okay.
oh, hey everybody, Trump said to go. We got to go. Let me get this lectern. Let's get out of here. Is that what you think happened?
It
Is that what
literally
you
happened.
think happened?
It literally
And Trump
happened.
caused it. Trump caused it.
Yes. Why did he wait 3 hours? Have you tried to answer that question? Why?
Why did he wait
Yeah.
3 hours
Yeah.
to tweet?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. He's probably figuring it out. What was it? What feed was he getting? Did he try to go there himself and stop it?
We know he was watching it live on TV. We know this for a fact.
So you wanted him live tweeting it?
I wanted him the second they started breaching the Capitol and attacking cops to tell them to go home. Yes.
Everybody? He doesn't think like cops have this under control?
Let's leave half of them in the Capitol. Yeah, let's just leave half of them. Of course.
Well, you guys have done that multiple times. You guys
just the ones that were let
protests in the fucking Capitol all the time. So it's not really that. It's not that strange for this big of a deal.
Okay.
Do you or do you not protest in the Capitol? Have liberals ever done that?
There's a slight difference between what we've seen in the past and what we saw on
you
January
did it.
6th.
That's the difference. You guys did it, so it's fine. Yeah.
There were people, for example, that protested the Kavanaugh hearings. They got arrested. They engaged in a form of civil disobedience. People take those risks and they break the law and they should be thrown in jail. Yes.
So your big problem with January 6th is that Trump didn't tweet it right away and say, go home. That's it.
He incited a mob to storm the Capitol in an effort to pressure Pence to not certify the results of those elections.
What a story.
It's not a story. It literally happened.
Oh, man. Look at all this stuff that he did. I know because I can read his fucking mind.
And then I don't know.
This is Trump's elaborate plan. By the way, he's a jackass and he's an idiot and he doesn't know what he's doing. But here's his elaborate scheme to somehow pressure people into using the legislative systems back in their home states. Wow, what a fucking monster.
Yes.
Thank God he didn't get away with using the system.
Yes. You still have not even tried to touch the question of why
he didn't tweet right away. I don't fucking know. Because he thought it would make it worse. Because he thought other people were because he thought the Capitol Police should be there doing their job.
You're saying he thought he would make it worse by asking them to leave?
Maybe. I don't know. I don't pretend to know what's in Trump's head. He said gather peacefully. What more do you want?
Okay. Did that happen?
I mean, for the most part, yeah. Most people, the people staying in the red velvet rope, walking around the Capitol, were doing it peacefully. Yes. Okay, what?
I'm not, like, you're not answering the question at all.
I said I don't know why Trump didn't immediately tweet, hey, everybody disperse, everybody leave. Don't you think that'd be kind of weird?
Just try to give an innocent explanation. Try.
I just did. He's getting information and he doesn't know what to do. He figured the Capitol Police would take care of it. He figured that the fucking locks on the door would work.
No. You're speculating when we don't need to. We know he was watching it live on TV for 3 hours.
So you're saying why didn't Trump stop Ashley Babbitt from climbing in that window? Is that what you're asking? Like he should have been right there. No, I'm the hand of God. Don't do what you're about to do.
Why did he not ask them to leave?
I don't know. Because he thought the Capitol Police would figure it out. Maybe he was trying to do other things.
Okay.
No. I understand that the only reasonable explanation is that he was trying to stage a fucking coup using Cracker Barrel grandmas, right? That's the only reasonable explanation. All right, everybody, get in there and walk through the velvet ropes and go in Nancy Pelosi's office and kick your feet up. That'll really strike fear into their hearts, right? Maybe the answer's on the floor, Hutch. Okay.
Sure.
Is that? Oh yeah.
So
am I here? Do you see your dad when you answer me like that?
What?
You have this smug, like sarcastic attitude with them.
I would encourage everybody who's listening to this right now.
Me too.
I would encourage everybody who's listening to this right now. The New York Times compiled a 40-minute compilation of videos that was assembled from footage from hundreds of people that day, and it documents in detail the hours of brutal violence. It was not just
mutilated.
It was not just QAnon grandma walking around the Capitol. You know that it's not true.
I mean, there's tons of people there. I'm sure there's a bunch of assholes too. The FBI's there. I don't like them.
Why would you focus on the grandma who was walking around the Capitol and not the people who were taking American flags and beating cops with them? That you guys are the guys that are the ones that normally say the thin
cops
blue line,
weren't fucking
back
beaten,
blue, et cetera, and now all of you think that these cops were like fucking deep state in on some Fed conspiracy.
Why were the doors open?
No, not the cops. Not the cops for sure. They got
FBI.
Their asses whooped. I think there was FBI in that crowd, essentially entrapping people by being like, yeah, come on, do it. If you've ever been in like a group fight of teenagers, there's one guy who's like, yeah, you should go get him. You fuck him up. You're a legend of the dots.
Why would the FBI incite a mob?
To do their job of arresting people. The FBI's job is to arrest terrorists, so they're going to cause terrorism. I mean, this is basic stuff. They do it all the time.
Well,
Yeah.
that's all
This
fascinating.
feels a lot like
That's
that
certainly-
time when they
that's
said
certainly a
it
take.
wasn't really Trump supporters there. It was all Antifa, right?
Mhm.
Oh, we would never
Yeah.
do the January 6th thing. That was Antifa. It's grasping at straws to not take responsibility for this.
Who, me? I didn't
I
do
was
it.
there.
Yes.
The people that were
God
there.
damn it.
I was
Then
at
stop
I was at
implying I was.
BLM, and there were Antifa guys there.
All right.
100%
Credit to you.
doing
That was
bad shit.
funny. I didn't mean to say you personally, but I'm obviously talking about the protesters
though.
that were there. And they're trying to say that wasn't Trump's people. Those were Antifa people. But we all know that's stupid, right? We do.
I mean, I'm sure it was both being bad guys. Like, I don't know.
yeah?
There's just
Yeah.
violent
Bad on
people.
both sides.
Is
buddy.
Antifa here with us now?
Okay.
Yes, they're all
Okay.
over.
All right.
What do you?
I'm just
I've
checking.
every
been,
question.
Do
I've
you
been
see
violently
Antifa
assaulted by
on this
Antifa
call?
guys. What are you talking about? A self-identifying Antifa guy threw me into a concrete bunker in front of Netflix.
I was
I would
seeing
rather-
people say
I-
Antifa shot Trump, whatever it was, last weekend. And I'm like, my gosh, everything's Antifa. Antifa's everywhere. It's the go-to boogeyman for the
Used to be
right.
Al-Qaeda.
I
That
would
was a good
rather you
time.
just say, the left poses, I believe the left poses such a serious threat that I'm okay with Donald Trump taking whatever steps he felt was necessary to stay in power. I would just much rather you just be honest about it instead of trying to come up with these bullshit excuses.
See, this is like
for his
this is why
egregious
everything you say
behavior
is
that
so
day.
loaded. It's like I want you to say, and then you give your insane opinion that I don't think, and then you act like a smug prick when I don't agree with it.
There's
Like I just
there
wish you
is
would
no
say you
innocent
want to kill liberals. Why
explanation.
won't you admit it?
I'm not saying you want to kill liberals. I'm saying that people broadly on the right view the left as this deranged mob of people that want to mutilate and sexually abuse kids and destroy democracy, replace capitalism with communism, replace God with Satan. And they're ready for someone like Trump to come in who openly floated suspending the Constitution. You know, like he just openly said it. And so I just don't understand this idea that you have to like jump through hoops. Just fucking say, you know what? I'm ready for a king. I am ready for this American democratic project to end, and I'm ready for a strong man to come in and protect the country from these godless liberals. We all know that's what you think.
This
This
really
is not
plays
that
to
you
your
say it out in the
audience who
open.
sees all conservatives as one person. But this might shock you, but we're all individuals who think
Sure.
that Trump had different reasons for doing what he did. A lot of us don't think that election was valid. A lot of us think
Based
that
on nothing. Based on nothing. On
Well,
nothing
no,
but
But
there
your
was-
vibes.
this goes into the question that Trump was trying to get to. Like, why'd Trump wait 3 hours? I think Dick is like, I'm okay with it because I think that election was shady.
Yeah.
No, absolutely not. I don't know what Trump tried to do in those 3 hours to stop it.
Nothing.
And
What do you mean you don't,
don't
know?
know.
What do you mean you don't know? We have a historical record of what happened that day. He tweeted 2 times and said remain peaceful during a riot, and then 3 hours finally asked them to leave. We know this. This is not like, well, I don't know. Well, go back and look at what happened. This is
yeah,
not
I mean,
up
it's
in the
such
air.
a weird thing to focus on when the J6 thing didn't do anything. It was just it was mostly people walking
They had to
around.
evacuate the Senate chambers. They had to delay the certification of the They literally had to stop what they were doing and
Holy
evacuate
shit, a whole
senators.
day? Oh my
What do you-
God. Did they still manage to spend all of our money in that day? I hope so.
What bothers me is their goal wasn't to delay it for a day. Their goal was to stop this, what is it called, ratification of the votes of the Electoral College, and slip in the fake Electoral College that Trump had handpicked, who would ignore the will of the voters and choose him instead. That was the
Not
move.
all of them, though, right? You don't think everyone there that day had that in mind, do you?
No, but I
Right.
think they were following Trump's instructions. I think
And
I
Trump's
Trump
wanted to
instructions
said
were to be peaceful.
he said both things. This is the Trump two-step. You're not on the show every week, but it's a thing I say a lot where I give these examples of Trump who says one thing and the other, and people say, "Oh, but wait, he said the other." But
I
he
put it
said
together.
both. He
Yeah.
said good. Yeah. I'm sorry. But Trump did say you're going to lose your country if you don't fight, and he also said, "But peaceful." And now
Well,
both
yeah.
sides get to hear what they want.
but
Well,
you can't say
I think-
fight means violent, though. Like that's like political rhetoric.
I hear you. All right. And I ask myself if I would make that same argument if it was my guy. But
Mhm.
he's made a lot of
Yeah.
violent requests, and
It's the
seems
same as the
hard
fucking
to ignore.
bullseye shit. Like
Yeah,
they try to they're trying to pin. The way I see fight politically is the same way I see bullseye. I remember when they did it to Sarah Palin. I know now they're doing it to Biden, where they're like, "Oh, he said put a bullseye on him," and it's like, yeah, that's
Stupid.
rhetoric, meaning we need to
here-
target this person and try and shut him down. The same way fight means
Sure.
go there, rally, do what you need, like fucking cheer and rah rah shish boom buy your shit, but do it peacefully.
Well,
he
here's an
liked
interesting
them in
question.
there delaying
Reasonable
the.
take.
There was a
Here's an
procedure
interesting
where he
question,
was
okay?
about to be officially the loser of the election, and I think he really liked that it wasn't happening. I think he liked that they were in there preventing Congress from doing his job.
Well, let me just ask you guys a question. If it was true that Joe Biden and the Democratic Party apparatus engaged in massive fraud all over the country and literally stole the election as Trump was alleging, would January 6th have been justified?
More than January 6th.
If they actually did, 100%.
Exactly.
No, it's still a crime.
Exactly. They would have been justified. If Biden actually did this coup, it would have been justified. And what did
But that's
Trump
a hindsight thing.
Yeah, but
you know?
what would have been justified? Doing a parade? Illegal parading?
No, I'm saying it would have been justified. And what did
What would have
Trump
been
do?
justified?
The thing that
Invading
happened.
the Capitol, trying to do a coup.
Yeah.
We would applaud it if it happened in
That
like a
wasn't
Central American
that wasn't
country.
a coup, though. It's just
I
a
mean, it
bunch
doesn't
of old
seem
people
like a
walking around.
But
genuine
this is the context.
It doesn't
This is
seem
the
like
context.
nobody brought guns.
Yeah.
Nobody was
That's
fucking
not true.
being
That's
like
not true.
shooting.
There were multiple
trying-
people. That's not true. There were multiple people. That
How many
were arrested
people were
gun
shot
charges
on
that day.
January 6th?
Somebody-
Other than
people.
Ashley Babbitt, how many
got
people? Were,
1,000.
hold on, how many people other than Ashley Babbitt were shot on January 6th?
Nobody. But you said there was no guns that
okay.
day. But
Who were they going to shoot, Taylor? They were all on
Okay,
the same
so I guess
side.
I guess
Hold
the
on, hold on.
FBI had guns.
Hold on. What happened that day is Donald Trump went to that ellipse and he gave that preliminary speech to his rally to his supporters, and he told them they stole this election. There was massive fraud. Mike Pence needs to do the right thing and save the country from the people that are stealing. So he implanted this thought in their minds that was based on nothing, absolutely nothing. No court case validated anything he was saying. He was
Not until
purposefully
after.
choosing. Not ever.
Yeah,
And
after
so
it
he
did.
implanted this thing in their head, and then what did they do? They went and they fought like hell for their country. So if you can't say that he bears at least some responsibility, me and Woody would probably argue he is like 99% his fault. But if you can't acknowledge that some of the
You
responsibility
guys give
that
1%? Wow, that's generous of you two.
would that have happened if he didn't ask his supporters to come to January 6th that day?
Right. I mean, the short answer, it was because of that. I mean, I was hearing about January 6th and the plans for this on my Facebook feed from the crazies I engaged with at the time. It was an open thing.
Then why aren't there more Capitol Police there?
There was there were interesting revelations.
Why weren't there more Secret Service at the rally?
Exactly.
I think
it's run by a woman.
Might be the same. thing.
Apparently, Secret Service would have just watched and been like, all these weird Corinthian columns. We can't climb up these. No.
There is an answer to this. There were people in the administration, and there were people in the, I think, what do you call the military Joint Chiefs of Staff? There were people in the sort of like defense apparatus that were concerned about the optics of a military presence there during a rally. And that obviously was stupid. But we have an answer to that question. It's not because of whatever it is you guys are alleging. They just
Capitol Police, not military.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. I think. I think it goes both ways. I think
so. They didn't want military presence, and then they put up barbed walls right after, and they're fine with that.
They could, again, Donald Trump literally could have called in the National Guard within 5 minutes of the violence. And
why is it his job though? He's not doing. I mean,
why is it? Why is he's the commander in chief, bro? What do you mean?
The commander in chief of the army. The army doesn't fight Americans, bro. Did you forget that?
The National Guard, you absolutely can deploy the National Guard to quell an insurrection.
And you expect him to have done that in like a couple minutes after people are... An insurrection isn't a bunch of Cracker Barrel grandmas going through open doors. Yes, it is. An insurrection is like a fucking militia storming shit. Not a bunch of feds opening the door for a parade.
Listen, like information silos exist. And at this point, I'm just fully convinced that you have somehow just I don't know how you've somehow managed to avoid the fucking hours of footage.
That you're saying from inside your fucking silo. No, I get it completely. It's amazing that this plan totally worked. They stormed the Capitol, and yet he immediately wasn't president. What a dumb plan.
I don't know what you're saying. Like sometimes like
No
insurrections
shit.
fail. Sometimes insurrections fail. They don't work.
Do you
it's like
wait,
a
Hutch?
Swiss
Do you
watch.
really?
Failed coup.
Hold on, I'm interested. Like, Hutch, do you really think all these largely Facebook boomers showing up unarmed and most of them, the vast majority, parading around like retards with their sunglasses profile pics on Twitter, like, do you think that was a sincere, honest to God coup?
Your memory of that day is
Here comes the
spotty,
bullshit.
I will say. You keep talking about QAnon grandma, people walking around and putting their foot up.
Do you
just
think what I
ignore-
just described, which is realistic, is
It's
a
not-
honest to God coup, or do you think a coup is more like what we see in the Khmer Rouge and things like that?
I think what is more likely that happened that day is you had Trump supporters show up and were whipped up by his speech at the Ellipse. They took him at his word that the country was being stolen. And a lot of them, I would assume most of them, got caught up in the moment. But I think you're making the mistake of isolating the events of January 6th and ignoring the previous 2 months where Trump was behind the scenes pressuring election officials, state legislatures in several states to disenfranchise millions of voters. That's what he did. This is not
again,
disputed.
do you think that a bunch of largely boomers showing up, the most armed populace on earth, by the way, by density, the most armed populace on earth, showed up without guns and largely marched around like retards? Do you think that was like an honest to God coup, the way you'd see a coup in France?
First of all, when you say largely marched around with retards, did you see the footage of the brutality that day?
Yeah. I saw
So it's more
footage
than,
of people fighting, and I also
Uh-huh.
saw footage of hundreds of people being opened like it was a fucking Disney Epcot exhibit.
If you were watching what happened that day, you would understand that the police had lines, and they had these individual lines, and the lines kept being broken. They kept being pushed back closer and closer and closer to the point where they were totally overwhelmed and they had to fall back into the Capitol. They had nowhere near the amount of staff. You can't hear me. They had nowhere near the amount of law enforcement officers that was needed in that moment to quell the riots. And so they had to fall back. There was nothing else. They were totally overrun. But I just conceded to you a moment ago. I don't think most of the people that did that day showed up thinking like, oh, I'm going to try to like stop the certification. I think they got caught up in the moment. I think they believed Trump when he said that Biden stole the election. And I think they took steps in that moment that they felt was necessary to stop him from certifying the election. Otherwise, the libs are going to steal the country and blah, blah, blah. But the context here is also 2 months of Donald Trump phone calls like his call to Georgia. I need you to find me 11,837 votes, which is one more. That's just one part of this equation. I mean, he assembled false slates of electors. He had no legal right to do that whatsoever. Conservatives always will defer to this thing that happened in 1960 where Hawaii, the Democratic Party in Hawaii presented an alternative slate of electors. They leave out the fact that was during an ongoing recount and they were ordered to do that by a judge. None of these false slates of electors that were happening in the swing states all over the country were ordered to do this. They just took it upon themselves to do this. So there was a plan.
Oh, the humanity.